Are you a baseball player or a parent of a player who has felt like it was ridiculously hard to get seen by coaches and evaluators at the next level? Have you ever stressed yourself out because you're unsure if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing when it comes to recruiting and creating those opportunities? Well, then you're in the right place because I'm joined today by people who specialize in getting players seen in the tournament space, and they do it the right way. We're going to hear a little bit about who they are. We're going to hear a little bit about what they do, and we're going to hear about how they're helping players get opportunities to further their careers. And on top of that, we're going to be giving you information about how you can use the tournament space and that whole experience to your advantage so you can take advantage of bringing your career to the next level. It's huge. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome back to the show the president of prospectwire, Brian Werner, and welcome to the show the COO of DS Sports, Justin Varitek. Brian, we'll start with you, man. What's going on? How you doing?
How's it going, Ian? Thanks so much for having me back again. It's always fun to get a chance to chat with you and see my colleague Justin's smiling face on this one. Just makes it much more worthwhile.
Absolutely.
I love it, man. So obviously, Brian, we had you on earlier talking about the All-American weekend in August at Vanderbilt. It was beautiful. It was insane. Justin, you were there as well, man. It was an incredible weekend. How you doing? It's a pleasure to have you here at the show.
Doing great, man. Thanks. Appreciate you having me on. Excited to be here and talk a little bit. And I've always enjoyed our conversations. And of course, with B-Dub, we have great conversations. So excited to continue this with you guys.
Yeah, big time, man. We were talking a little bit before we went live. My experience coming up in the game of baseball, I was a 9-hole hitter. I had to scratch and claw. I was also a late bloomer. So I didn't get a ton of attention at the next level from college coaches, especially D1. I didn't get any college offers in the D1 space. And especially when I was progressing through college, man, I was kind of like an under the radar player. So I didn't have a ton of experience in showcases, in tournaments, but more specifically the tournament space, man. So I'd love to ask you guys some questions about the tournament space so we could kind of get started with just some basic knowledge on it, what it's for, what these tournaments are designed to do, who they're designed for, man. Brian, we'll start with you. Who comes to your showcases, man? Who benefits most from the showcase space? What's it about and why?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's kind of a loaded question because it's evolved so much, since the early days of travel ball. When things first got started, really travel ball was just a way for kids my age, really, because back then it was Legion, but as travel ball kind of evolved, it was just a way for kids to continue to keep playing. Um, and kids that were in colder weather states, were able to start traveling to southern states where it was warmer, and it just allowed them to kind of continue their advancement, and continue their development because as we've talked about, there's no real replacement for live reps. If you're a pitcher, there's no replacement for being on a mound and facing 3, 4, 5 hitters in an inning. As a hitter, there's no replacement for actually seeing live moving fastballs that aren't, you don't know where they're going, curveballs, you don't know how they're necessarily going to break. So I think that's how travel baseball kind of started in the beginning. And then all of a sudden it was, recruiters and colleges found a way to go, wait a minute, instead of having to go to one high school game and watch 1 or 2 kids and then drive, to another city to go watch another kid and drive to another state to go watch a third kid, which was how you did things when I first, got into scouting and everything, in my early days after college, to a point where you could go, wait a minute, now I've got 60, 70, 80 teams, 100 teams all in one location, general location, and I can just sit in, one park, that has 8, 9 fields, and all of a sudden I'm watching, 16, 18, 19, whatever it is, 20 games, at one time where I can bounce around and everything. And then, and from there, it's obviously, condensed itself even more to going, if I'm a coach at let's say, LSU, or at Tennessee, I can sit there and go, hey, the kids that I want to see play for this team, because all these kids are now starting to band together to have super teams. The same thing we're seeing at the professional levels and at the collegiate levels, for that matter, with the transfer portal. These kids are playing for one team, and a coach can sit there and go, I don't know. I no longer need to walk around parks and just bounce from field to field. I know exactly where the 6 kids I want to recruit are, and they're going to be in the same location. And I can watch them for 2 days and watch them get 20 at bats, over the course. So it's kind of evolved, and now technology obviously has come into play and all those things. But the tournament space, like I said, it was. I don't know if it was ever meant to be as big of a recruiting thing as it has now become, but um, I really believe that we always say that Prospect Wire was built for the 99% of the kids that actually do need a platform to perform in front of a college coach. Whereas that, those one percenters, a lot of the kids that we saw at our All American weekend are going to be those kids that don't need our help or any other company's help for that matter, because they're that 1%. So.
Hey, I know you're a good baseball player and you have ambitions of playing the game at the next level. However, you're struggling to separate yourself, play your best baseball, and get those opportunities. I get it. I've been there. Listen, you aren't alone right now. In order to get different results and different opportunities, you have to go about your business differently, which is why I want to invite you to check out the athlete development program. Players that are less skilled and less equipped are getting these opportunities over you, and that's because they figured out the system to maximize what they have. I want to teach you the system as well. There are ways that players are able to use their failure to their advantage. There are ways that players are able to separate themselves from their competition based on things more than just talent. If that sounds interesting to you and you want to work one-on-one with an ex-Major League Baseball player on these things, then check out the application down below. The transfer portal. Obviously, the landscape of college baseball is changing. There are less spots. There are less jobs at the professional level. So baseball is hard. Baseball's hard already, but advancing your career, maximizing it, taking it as far as you can go, that's even harder. And so a facet of that, an avenue to be able to do that is the tournament space. So Tech, I got a question for you. With limited spots, with the landscape of everything changing, man, how important are tournaments? How important are like weekend tournaments that you guys are doing at Prospect Wire? How important are these tournaments in getting seen? What can you expect if you're a player or a parent of a player when you go to these tournaments? And how do you get the most out of these tournament weekends, man?
I think a lot of it Brian hit already, but a lot of it is play. Getting out there and getting on the field and playing and competing against other players. And I think a huge and important piece of that is with the tournaments, what they provide is being able to compete not only against people from your area, but from different areas, collective, maybe from different states. So colleges and yourself, you can compare yourself to kids from different states, which helps them in the recruiting process where it's like, hey, this college, I'm interested in you, you're interested in me. Then all of a sudden you play against somebody else and then you can compare better and have better data with the competition on the field. So I think that from a competitive standpoint, just being able to get out there and play and compete against everybody from all different types of areas and backgrounds, I think is huge, absolutely huge for players, for parents to see as well. And let's be honest, it's parents need to know and understand they think their kid's the best, but when you're out there and you're playing against kids from all over the country, now you can see, all right, maybe little Johnny isn't as good as I thought, or he's better than what I thought, vice versa, either way. So you can get some more data for yourself to compare. And also, I think a huge thing with these tournaments too, again, you're playing good competition and you get videos from the recruiting side. You get videos of your kids, get little clips, and your kids need to be the ones who are out there promoting themselves, doing their own mini little highlight videos of clips. And and I've seen it in the past where, Johnny hit a home run or a double off of a big time D1 pitcher, use that clip, take that short little video and send that out to colleges that you're like, now you're showing that you're doing something really good against a really good player, as opposed to a hitter. If I'm out there and I get a home run and the guy's throwing 55 and I share that, that's completely different, So I think the tournament space, is it going to happen every tournament, every weekend? No, but it's a great space to be able to collect the data that you can have to promote yourself to all these colleges. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's important. So being able to collect video, being able to collect data, you still have to do that on your own and outreach to these individual programs. You still have to do the legwork and grind to get seen. But these tournaments, whether it's a weekend or an individual day, like these tournaments are good spots in order to see where you stack up against the best competition. Get it on video, get the data, get the highlights to be able to distribute. That's what I'm getting from that. So that's huge, man.
For sure.
Brian,
And
wanted to
I would
what,
add on though, real
go ahead.
quick, parents out there, make sure you're not communicating with the college coaches. The kids, your kids have to do it all. It's got to come from them. It's got to be, they've got to be driven to do it. It's not your dream. It's got to be their dream, their hard work, them out there putting themselves out there, creating the relationships with different college coaches, and also creating relationships with kids all across the country, which is another huge thing, a very, very cool piece. But parents, make sure your kids are the ones doing this. If they want to do it, it's got to come from them. College coaches want to hear from the kids. They don't want to
Mm.
hear from parents.
Got you. Hey, that's big. So that's something that if we're talking about limited spots and trying to maximize our careers, maximize our opportunities, little things like that, I'm sure go a long way in separating people from the pack. Um, man, how big of a role do parents play in the recruiting landscape? I know that parents want the best for their kids, man, but there's a fine line between doing too much and wanting the best for them. Brian, what in your opinion, man? Um, like what are the types of things that parents can do throughout the recruiting process? I know we're kind of branching off from the tournament space, but like you guys are in the heart of it, and you guys are in play an integral role in these players' careers when they're vulnerable, when they have all these decisions they need to make. Man, what are some of the things that you've seen where parents like overstep, do too much in this whole process?
Yeah, I think that as we talked about the tournaments evolving, parents have kind of evolved, and not trying to say this in a negative way, but some of that involvement of the parent has kind of changed it, for the worse when it comes to the recruiting side of things, because as Tech was just talking about, a college coach doesn't want to know that mom and dad is always going to be there asking questions. The college coach is more than happy to have mom and dad there in the stands, as part of the crowd cheering them on and supporting. And I think that's the number one thing a parent can do: support their child, and don't push their child. If my parents always took it the approach of, once they knew I wanted to do something, okay, we'll push you now. If this is what you want, then we're going to put our full passion behind it, and we will help you and succeed as much as we can from behind the scenes. And I think that's the biggest thing that I can say, to parents is be supportive. If your kids don't want to play the sport, don't force the sport on them, whatever the sport may be. If they do want to play the sport, then learn all there is to know about that sport, about the recruiting process, and learn, the rights and the wrongs, what you need to spend your money on versus what you don't. You don't need to be going to a collegiate showcase when you're 13 and 14 years old, necessarily, unless it's a specialized thing. A very invite only kind of specialized thing. It's like something like PG Fest or like the PW All American Games. Uh, when you're 13 years old, going to a showcase and paying, five, six, $700 to have your metrics tested, and college coaches are going to be there and everything. If you're falling for that, then, let's be real. The new recruiting landscape is you can't talk to those kids until they're getting ready to start their junior year now. So, uh, all these kids out there, and I think that's how, recruiting has kind of changed in that manner too. Kids today, social media is such a big thing. Everyone wants to post, their commitment things. We see the collegiate kids doing it on National Signing Day, and that used to be a special thing. And now you've got kids in high school that are making posts about where they're going to be attending high school, and you've got kids doing it on what travel team they're going to play on and everything. And we're in a generation of a lot of disloyalty. People change travel teams all the time. They change collegiate teams all the time. We're in the age of free agency where players are chasing money, at the professional level and changing teams all the time. The days of the Derek Jeters and the Cal Ripkins of the world are few and far between. Um, and it's to me, I think the biggest thing that, like I said, as parents can do is be educated, be supportive of your kids and everything. And like Tech said, just when the time comes and the face needs to be, in front of those coaches, let it be, your child that's doing the talking, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to be on that college campus. They're the ones that are going to be in that locker room and on that field. And if you don't know what kind of player that kid is, uh, early on in the process and everything, if he's hiding behind mom and dad, it's going to come to light very, very quickly when he sets foot on a collegiate field.
Yeah, love that, man. Tech,
Can I add on to that real
yeah,
quick?
please. I was going to throw it right back to you.
Yeah. So, to add on to what Brian just said, not to harp on parents, but just giving advice to parents. Tournaments are great, like Brian already said about colleges being there to be able to see a lot of people at one time, right? So, a lot of times these scouts, college coaches, they don't want to be seen, so they're mixed in the crowd. You don't know if they're there. So as a parent, like something my brother always taught me was like when I warm up and I do things and I step on the field, imagine somebody's behind the wall watching. You don't know they're there, but always pretend somebody is there. So you're working your tail off, not goofing around, but you're having fun. You're with your teammates, blah blah blah. But you're still getting the things you need to get done because you don't know if somebody's watching. Same thing with parents. I've heard a lot of college coaches talk and say, if a parent is a jackass, guess what? They're not recruiting your kid.
Mm,
Period. So if you're sitting there screaming at umpires, screaming at other players, calling kids out on the field, you've just scratched your kid off the board 100%. So parents, you've got to be mindful of that. Make sure you are there. Like B-Dub already said, support your kid, but not just your kid, support every kid on the team. And a lot of times parents get selfish and they're only focused and zoned in on their kid. Be supportive of everybody. Be that good parent who's there. Don't make a scene, don't draw attention to yourself. That is going to help your kid get recruited anywhere, but especially at tournaments when you never know who is around, or you never know. So I'm there, somebody's there, Ian, you're there, and you see a kid that you really like, you want to share with your college coach friends to help them get recruited, and you say, this kid's great, awesome. And then all of a sudden, wait, nope, parent, blah, 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 did this, you don't
yeah.
want this kid. You know what I mean? You just
Out.
never know. You don't have to be a college scout. It could be relationships of people that know college coaches that can get your kid recruited, but you can also hurt that in the long run if you're doing jackass things.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll give you a real life example because without having to name names, my first year working in professional baseball as a scout, going into draft prep, kid that the organization I was with was looking to take in the top 3 rounds. All the area scouts, everyone loved him. Everything was great. Our regional cross checker and our national cross checker both went in, had conversations with the kid. Everything was great. They finally met with the parents, found out some unsavory things that the parents were doing behind the scenes that the kid was absolutely unaware of, and that kid never did end up getting drafted. Never did end up having a career in baseball and everything. I lost track of. For a while, he was a coach in the minor leagues and everything, but lost an opportunity to be a top 3 pick in Major League Baseball because of things that the parents were doing behind the scenes. And I know that's an extreme example, but
It's
that's a
real.
real life example of something that happens. I mean, that parents don't understand that the things that they are doing, if they have an athlete, especially a high profile athlete, the things that they're doing, with their own social media, especially today, we know quite a few parents, Tech and I do, that are um, very risque with some of the things that they like to post on their social media. Well, guess what? College coaches know that too.
For sure.
Professional organizations know that too. I was
They do
roommates
their
in
homework.
college with someone that went through it with a girl. So it's things that happen off the field are tough things, and parents need to do all they can to protect their kids, especially if that's what they want. If they want to have a kid that's going to be playing on national television every day, then unfortunately sometimes you got to make sacrifices too.
Absolutely, man. There's a ton of like stressors and outside pressures, man, that we can put on ourselves in the game of baseball, and a lot of times it can come from some of the parents. Like we talked about, man. How do you toe that line between doing everything you can for your kid and then doing too much, man? So we see it. We see it. Obviously, student athletes go through a ton of adversity from multiple facets of everyday life, trying to be a student athlete and getting it at home, getting the pressure kind of at home on the car rides home, unrealistic expectations. Man, that's tough sometimes. So social media plays a big aspect of that. So it's a critical part of the baseball development process. It's a critical part of getting seen. These tournaments, especially showcases where you can showcase your talent, but these tournaments specifically, man, there are different brands, there are different companies that run these tournaments. They have different missions, they have different flavors, they have different ways that they develop and they showcase talent and they get people seen. Man, Brian, I'd love to ask just a little bit about Prospect Wire, the mission, like who you guys are, man. How did it get started? Just run us through that, man, if you don't mind.
Yeah, try to be as brief as I can for 20, covering 20 years. But Prospect Wire was started as kind of just a showcase, company that the gentleman who founded the company, Matt Baumeizel, back in 2004, 2005, kind of wanted his path to through baseball is very similar to myself, to yours, where it was he wasn't heavily recruited. He needed to do a lot of his own. Back then it was camcorders and videotaping and those kind of things. We didn't have the social media as much, but wanted to kind of provide a platform for like I said, the 99, 98% of the other kids, that were out there that at the time it was just, minor showcases. We, in 2008, which was the year that I joined and everything, we ran our biggest showcase at the time at Viera, which was the Nationals complex at the time, which is now the USSSA complex over there at Space Coast. But and we had guys like Scooter Gennett and Nick Castellanos and those kind of guys that were there. And it was the first time that we kind of had that idea, like, oh my God, wait, if we could possibly potentially, do this. There was only one or two other companies at the time that were running tournaments. So we kind of got that idea, like, hey, what if we started running tournaments where we got more of these kids all in the same location and started to recruit, get some of these teams there. And so that's how it kind of started in Florida. Our first tournament in Florida had, I think it was 24 teams, whatever it was. And I remember at the time thinking like that was so overwhelming. And now I joke we could run a 24-team tournament from a hospital bed while they were performing surgery. But that kind of is how Prospect Wire got started. It was a platform for the majority of kids just to get out there. We worked to try to bring as many colleges as we could, realistic colleges, not working to have necessarily the head of D1s there, but more, let's see how many junior colleges we can get there, how many D1s, D2s, D3 schools we can get there, NIA school, those kind of things. Because that's the majority of the kids that attend baseball tournaments, no matter who the organizer is. Those are the kids and the colleges that need to actually see those kids. The University of Miami's of the world and the Florida States of the world don't need to necessarily go to a tournament. So that's how it got started. And then in 2012, we were encouraged to get away from rain. After a couple of years of dealing with rain in tournaments in Florida, we went to Arizona because logically you go where it just doesn't rain. And at the time, Arizona wasn't quite the extreme temperatures that it's become over the last 10 plus years. But as we were out west, we started seeing a lot of teams that were like, "Hey, if you just came to California, no one else is out here. No one's really doing anything in the space out here that's consistent. If you guys just put in the work and the effort, and we'll help you, maybe you guys could do something." And because we were small, because we didn't have a large operation at the time, there were only 3, 4, 5 of us that were working on a mostly full-time basis. We were like, yeah, we can do this. We've never been to California. How hard could it possibly be? And then we went to California and realized that there are no complexes out there. Until now, there's complexes for the smaller ages and everything to use stuff, but there's only really 1 or 2 full size, 3, 4, 5 field complexes in Southern California. So we went about it the hard way. We started building it, field by field at a time, contacting colleges and saying, hey, if we can run these events in college locations and have 5 or 6 college fields mixed in, all of a sudden we now give colleges a reason to recruit and they don't have to go anywhere. So we were providing, automatic recruiting opportunities for our teams. And we were like, geez, if we just did this in more locations, like how, what service could we provide instead of telling a parent just come give us your money for 4 games and thanks a lot. We're actually going to say you're going to play game one at let's say a UCSD, and your game two is going to be at a Point Loma university, and then your next game is going to be at San Diego State potentially, and then you're going to go play at a high school field that had 7 pro guys all play at it and everything, like a place like Cathedral Catholic in California or something like that. So we started realizing that we could build a slightly different experience if we weren't just using your everyday local facilities or your complexes that which are great. Don't get me wrong. We all love as directors and operators. We all love the the 8-field complex. But if, as Tech can tell you, he went out for the first time last year, this past year, and got to see what our California events look like. And as hard as I'll be the first to admit, they are impossibly stressful to organize and put together up until the day that the first pitch is thrown. And even then, you're still praying that you're going to get through it. But when you do see it on a full grand scale, what it actually does look like, and what an event like that can look like coming together, it's kind of it's a pretty cool thing. And is, as I said, as stressful as it is, are some of our favorite events to run are the California events, because the talent that's out there on the West Coast it's different than what we normally see on the East Coast here. Different kind of player. Pitching's usually a little bit better out west than it is on the East Coast and everything. You get a little bit more physical of a ball player. So it's been a cool kind of experience to kind of traverse the country and go east to west and south to north and just see the differences that are out there and everything, and just find opportunities anywhere we can now to bring events that we feel like are worthwhile to the area that we're bringing them to, because there's a lot of good baseball players out there, and unfortunately there's not a lot of good platforms for them to perform at.
Yeah, that's awesome right there. So, Tech, man, I got a big question for you. So obviously you are the COO of DS Sports, I guess a parent company that owns and operates ProspectWire. So you work directly with ProspectWire, man. You boots on the ground. We were in Nashville together, man. You were huge on instruction, huge behind the scenes, man. What, like, in your opinion? We've seen a whole bunch of stuff coming out in the tournament space where it's like, man, there could be some companies that they do it for a cash grab, man. It's not necessarily about having integrity. It's not necessarily about development or getting people recruited, getting people seen. It's about making money, which I get, I understand, man. In your opinion, with what you've seen, obviously, man, you have the Varitek last name. Your family has rich baseball history, man. You guys have been around the game, dude. What separates ProspectWire from like the big names, man? And like it's more than just a financial transaction, man. It's a personal connection. I've seen the way Brian kind of talks to the parents in the stands, man. What separates in your mind ProspectWire from all the others?
It's simple. You hit it right on the head. It's relationship. Brian and his team are phenomenal at what they do. They are boots on the ground. You said I'm boots on the ground with them. Sure, I'm with them, but they're him and his team run it phenomenally. I stay out of the way. I just help wherever needed, help whenever I can, whatever they need. That's it. They are out there every weekend doing the tournament. They're all week long getting it prepped, or months before getting it prepped. But the biggest thing that they do is relationships with them. They care. They care about not only their employees, but the teams, the players, the parents, to give the best experience possible, as opposed to, hey, we got 100 teams to sign up. We're good. We're golden. We met our quota. We're done. Go play. That's not it. As you heard Brian say earlier, it's stressful. It's extremely stressful. You want to make sure that all the games are played, everything runs smooth, which they do a phenomenal job of that. It's the experiences that they provide. Brian hit on that with those fields and the stadiums. Not every player is going to play at the next level. So do you want to spend all this money to play all these tournaments and play at Little League fields? Sure, go for it. But you want to play in some tournaments that are going to, hey, yeah, I played at this stadium. I played at San Diego State. I played at this university. I played at this great high school that had 10 pro guys, like Brian already said, 6 pro guys, whatever it is. You want to create those experiences. And I think B-Dub and his team do a great job of trying to provide the best experience possible. Obviously it doesn't happen every time. Someone's always going to be upset. Like someone's always upset with the umpire, no matter what. It's life. It's going to happen that way, right? But you try to eliminate as many problems as you can going forward. And I think B-Dub and his team do a really good job of that, and just really making it about the experience, the kids being on the field and playing, and actually talking to parents, talking to kids, and building those relationships with coaches. And hey, what are we doing wrong? What are we doing right? How can we make it better? As opposed to, thanks for your money, see you later.
Yeah, smell you.
Yeah.
The personal connection's big, man. I get it. Obviously, like if it's more than just a cash transaction, a financial transaction, that's beneficial, right? You show up
Yep.
and you just swipe the credit card and then you get some video taken, maybe. It's not beneficial, right? But you guys, Brian, Prospect Wire is coming off of the best year ever. You guys had a record summer, so things are obviously going well for you guys. You guys are doing something well. You are getting new teams, getting new clients in new areas, but you also have people coming up through your system year over year. You're building these long-term connections with these players. In your opinion, how do you measure the success of a tournament beyond just like players and teams signing up and scout attendance, and like what benchmarks truly define an impactful event in your mind?
I think there's a lot of different ways. Thank you, by the way, for the compliment on our success this past year. As Tech said, I had nothing to do with it. We've got a really good team that does a great job on the ground. I'm just kind of the man behind the curtain that does my best to put people in the right position and
Hey, the wizard.
put our events in the right places and everything. So there's nothing that happens at Prospect Wire without guys like Nick and Nick Susi, our tournament director, Frank and Mike, our vice presidents, who are unbelievable at getting staff, at last second sometimes, for events all the way down to our operators like Stephen Martin and guys like that Ernie Padron and Billy Colomay, who have been with us for a long time, who I don't have to attend an event anymore because I know that if certain people are there, that it's in good hands, and that's took me a long time to get there. But yeah, as to kind of circle back and everything, I really in the event space and the tournament space and everything is not like I said, not to pile on with what Tech was talking about. It just there's so many different avenues. That we can go to create better experiences, to connect, with the people that are coming to our events. And to me, like you said, that's the most important thing is making sure, a lot of people will say that, and again, we are running a business and at the end of the day, yeah, we do need to meet our budget and all those kind of things. But, just being able to do something different. We built this business on having dinners with travel coaches, with taking, not to push bad habits, but a lot of baseball, a lot of sports meetings in general take place in bars, at these conferences and everything. That's where relationships are forged, because if I can't have a drink with you, or if I can't have a meal with you, or have a conversation with you away from the actual baseball field and your 4 games and everything, then what's the point of going through life? If we're just going to kind of pass each other by like ships in the night kind of thing. So it's creating a new experience, a different experience. It's building new relationships, like you were saying. It's coming off of a year like this, for us. The measure of if it's a good event is if we hear parents talking about how I can't wait for next year. When teams are already talking about, we've had teams that have come to our event in San Diego and have gone 0-4 and have said this is the best event we have ever played in. We cannot wait to come back. To me, if a team goes 0-4 in a tournament, I am looking for reasons why I needed to give their money back. Not reasons why they're getting ready to plan their next vacation and tournament with us in another city. So to me, that's a big measure. When teams are coming on multiple consecutive years to events that are not in their own city, that's a pretty good measure that you're running a good tournament, that you're running a good experience. If the teams are, these days on social media, not that, we don't set out for the likes and for all those kind of things. That's not our main primary goal, but it's always nice, when an organization out there gives us a little bit of love and says, hey, just shout out to, so and, Prospect Wire for doing, a fantastic job. There's a group out there, Next Level Baseball, who does a really good job at that, of just, giving a little bit of love and everything. Because like I said, at the end of the day, we're just a small piece of the puzzle, but yeah, to me, those are the key things. If you're coming back year after year, if you're changing your plans, because maybe you normally go out of town and you're like, hey, wait a minute, I enjoy playing Prospect Wire when I went out of town, and now they're running an event that's in my area. I don't necessarily have to travel to another event, so maybe I skip going to so and so's event this year because I can stay home and pick up an extra Prospect Wire event. Those kind of things to us, let us know that. That the brand is doing well and that we're doing at least something right.
Big time, man. So you guys had a huge year this year, record year, like we just talked about, man. How are you planning on following that up in 2025? So, Tech, I got a question for you surrounding like the Prospect Wire youth. So you guys are going to be doing some things moving forward in 2025 and beyond for players like in the 10, 11, 12 age range, man. Can you run me through that? What's going on there?
Yeah, we Brian B Dub and I were talking a few months ago, and they asked me and wanted me to help out with creating a youth market, which I think is huge. Because currently, right now, Prospect Wire just does 13 to 18U, and then because of field size mainly, and then wanted to get into starting to get these kids into tournaments at a younger age to get them some more experience in the tournament world. So when they're older and they start playing, they've played in them, it's nothing new, right? So
Yep.
we have started our discussions, and we are in the phase of about to pick and announce some dates for 2025, probably around three to four, 3 to 5 dates, and it'll be probably later in the summer through the fall. So we are just excited to get into that space because it is a huge space. It's big, and right now in that age group and that range right now, it's just play. It's just tournaments, right? Where P Dub can bring a little bit more of what they do best. Obviously, the relationships and the caring about the players and the tournament and the games, making sure everything's run well, but also bringing in their little bit of scouting, to the youth side too, to get some social media love for some of these kids that parents can post, which they normally wouldn't have at a regular tournament, and they can share with their loved ones, with friends and families across the country. So to create more experiences at the youth level as well, I think is a big, cool, really, really cool thing to do, as opposed to just, hey, we're throwing another tournament to make money. As Brian said, it is a business, yes, but it's also bringing the P-Dub advantage of relationships, caring, and providing some social media coverage, which we all know 10, 11, 12-year-olds, not everyone, but most of them have social media accounts, but their parents do. And you can also, they can share those experiences and share what those kids have done on the field to everybody. And we're providing that platform to them. So it's cool. I'm
Awesome.
excited where it's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. The supply and demand, man. So obviously like the changing landscape of college baseball seems to be trickling down a little bit. The showcase, the tournament space seems to be evolving as well with the ever-changing landscape of baseball changing up top, maybe trickles down. It seems like there's a younger demographic now of players utilizing the tournament space and kind of leveraging that, using that to their advantage in order to take their career to the next level. Brian, man, what are some of the trends? Like, what are some of the things that you've seen with this ever-changing landscape of the tournament space, more specifically, like the last couple of years, that's been surprising or mind-blowing in your mind?
I think the number of kids out there that we see that are claiming that they're committed when they're 13 and 14 years old because they want to make a cool social media post. I think that trend has progressed into all of a sudden, we have groups out there ranking, 8U, 9U, 10U teams, players, which is even more dangerous. It's one thing to rank teams, to rank a 9U player is insane and everything. We kind of pride ourselves. I've never gotten into the ranking system and everything. We've discussed potentially, ranking teams, but only doing it from the standpoint of the teams that attend our events and everything, which, that gets into, other trends where all of a sudden, it's a big trend to announce that you were the number one, travel organization in the country and everything. But as we've always discussed kind of internally, are you really truly the number one at anything if you haven't gone up against everyone else that's out there and everything? So if you're not comparing apples to apples, then at the end of the day, the ranking, I think that to me that the trend of parents buying into you have to attend this and this in order for your kid to be ranked, or to get a ranking on someone, on someone's website, is dangerous. I think where it's gone and what it's done to the average travel parent in all sports. It's not just a baseball thing. It's an everyone thing, pretty much. And it's created this new mindset, and that's part of piggybacking off of what Tech was talking about with PW Youth and providing a different experience. It's not only about just what we do on the baseball field in terms of providing videos and player profiles and those kind of things and everything. It's also about how can we educate today's 8U, 9U, 10U, 11U parent that's first coming onto the scene and everything to help them understand that when a kid is 8, 9 years old, they need to have fun. They need to figure out if baseball is actually fun, if it's something they want to do with their life, or are they just one of those, that just wants to go out there and play casually, or are they someone that takes it seriously, that watches games when they're not actually playing it? Are they sitting in front of the television, practicing their grips at their pitchers, or like probably all three of us did as kids, picking up a wiffle ball bat and standing in front of the television and pretending you were hitting against Nolan Ryan or Pedro
all the
Martinez or
time.
whatever the case may be. I don't. I think today's kids, today's parents have changed to the point where they see things. We see it on TV, so it must be true. That kind of thing. A doctor on television told me that such and such is real, and he's standing on television and he's wearing a lab coat, so it must be real. And we've gone through that. For whatever reason, in our real lives, we question everything, but on a baseball field or a football field or a basketball field, parents don't question anything. It's the such and such group told me that if my kid attends this event, and everything, he's going to be his team's going to be the top ranked team in the country, and blah blah blah. Who cares? At the end of the day, we all got trophies to show you, what amounts to being the number one team at anything comes to. So I think that's where Prospect Wire is trying to make it a little bit different, to make them understand that it's a fun opportunity. It's a chance to go out there and learn and just get back to the basics of baseball without having to worry about, if I don't perform well today, my kid's not going to get a scholarship to go play at Tennessee next year, even though he's 8 years old. So I think that's the biggest change, is that the today's parent, I think, buys a little bit more into the things that they see and hear, instead of realizing that we're just we're a platform like anything else. We're an opportunity to showcase your skill set. We are not your everlasting ultimate key that's going to make you a D1 superstar or the first pick in the draft and everything. We're simply a piece to that puzzle.
Yeah, that's big. So obviously with a huge, record-setting 2024, not that the pressure's on, but you obviously want to follow that up with a bang in a big 2025. So you guys are going to be having You guys are going to be running it back this year in Utah. We talked a little bit about that being a new destination right this past year. You guys are going to be back there again. You guys are going to be in Boise. That's huge. You guys have just, you guys are going to be having a partnership with USA Premier. Bunch of events. Was checking out the website, man. That's huge. So all things are pointing up, man. The wind's at your back. You guys have momentum. I love to hear it. Tech, I got one more question for you, and then I'll bounce this over to Brian as well to get your feedback. Man, with everything we just heard, kind of about the tournament space, how you can maximize it, how you can use it to your benefit, some things to look for, some things to look out for, man. If you had to, if you could redesign the tournament model from scratch, what would you change to make it better, to serve the players, the parents, and like the baseball community as a whole, and why? If you had the ability to do that.
Oh, wow. That is a fantastic question.
Thank you, man. I put a good amount of time into this one.
Yeah, you absolutely threw me a slider, which I could never hit. So
Ambush, yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer this. Maybe bounce back and forth with B Dub on this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
If he had
please.
ideas, but I mean, I don't know. I'd say in all sports, not just baseball alone, but in the tournament side of things that I see that are negative, I would say, um, are a lot of expectations or wrong expectations of what parents, coaches, and players may have. So I would say maybe one thing to change would be expectations. We've hit on some of this stuff already. We've talked about it, but expectations of a coach not to be like, hey, team, we're going 6-0. And if you don't go 6-0, you're kicked off, you're out, and I'm finding somebody else. Right. Or a parent telling their kid they've got to go 8 for 8 in the tournament. If not, they don't, they're losing their phone, they're losing their car, they're losing whatever, expectations of, hey, this tournament, if you don't do well, you're not going to go and play college next year, like that expectation, things like that, I think need to change. So I would say that would be a change, and more of just, hey, like Brian said, opportunities and experiences. Like, tournament is an opportunity for you to, one, be a good teammate, two, have great experiences with your team and possibly other kids from other teams from different areas, different states, which you would never have, which I think is a fantastic opportunity and experience for kids, and then just another opportunity for you to play against some good talent, or not so much, or just learn and develop and get yourself better. So to be able to develop at these tournaments, change that mindset and that expectation to developing to get better in the long run. Because you never know, in one tournament, you can go 0 for the tournament. The next tournament, you're going 4 for 6. Somebody sees it, or now you're on the PW watch list because you just went 4 for 6, but you went 0 for the 5 tournaments before, or 3 tournaments before. Even though you squared every ball up, who cares?
Yep.
The stat line doesn't show that. But you have one good tournament. Now you're on a watch list for Perfect Game, for PW, for whoever else may have these. So it's just opportunities and more chances to develop, get better as not only a player, but a human being and a person. And then obviously, hopefully you get better for if you want to go to the next level and move on.
Love it. What about Brian? What about you, man? Just kind of like wrapping up here. If you had the power to redesign the whole model, man, what would you change and why?
This is going to sound so bad coming from me, a person in my position. Um, there needs to be kind of subtraction by addition. There needs to be less tournaments offered throughout the year, but more quality tournaments offered in areas that teams can get to them. Um, uh, as I've learned, over the last few years, getting involved in this side of prospectwire and building the business and going to more conferences and meeting with destinations and learning that it is a partnership. Without the destinations, we can't get the fields. Without the local visitors bureaus and sports commissions, we don't have access to those fields, which is what allows us to present those, to give those quality experiences to people. So I think if there was the ability to the problem in today's tournament world is there's so many tournaments and kids bounce from team to team and they'll play 5 games in 3 days at our tournament and then go turn around 2 days later and they're playing 6 or 7 games. There's tournaments out there that are 6 and 7 game guarantees. Because they're the companies that are looking to make a premium dollar, and we get that. It's a specialized event or whatever, but I don't think parents realize that, you're going to go play in that 7 game guarantee and maybe you're playing 7, 8, 9 games and then you're turning around on a 2 days rest. Maybe that tournament was in Arizona where it was 110 degrees and now all of a sudden you're going to Florida to play in an event where, it's 90 degrees with 100% humidity. And that's a totally different experience on a player's body. And then maybe you're going back home to the Northeast or somewhere where, it's a milder, or you're going back out West or something where, it's a milder temperature. It just little things like that affect the body. It affects today's athletes. We see it. When I was in high school, the initials TJ, the only thing we knew about Tommy John was he was a pitcher in the major leagues. You never ever heard of a high school player. You rarely heard of a collegiate player having to have, Tommy John surgery. And now you're hearing about parents that are intentionally going out there and having the surgery done because they think that they think their kid's going to bounce back the same way that Justin Verlander bounces back or whatever. He's going to come back throwing harder than he did before. And I think the pressure of so many different places to try to perform has kind of done that. So I think, to me, if we could have a way to bring better tournaments, more quality tournaments, while still being able to have teams travel in from at least distances where the heads and beds are a thing, because that is helping obviously the destinations. And at the same time, I think helping the average travel parent to understand that not everything, that tournaments aren't out there. We're not all making money hand over fist. That we all have operating costs. That there are field costs. That there are umpire costs associated when you're trying to get better umpires. That baseball costs rise every year. But the other thing I was going to say to you want to run a better tournament, get rid of stats, like Tech was talking about. I know you need the end result and everything to advance teams to a playoff, and all that's fine and dandy, but and I say that from a company that pushes stats. Our live streaming service with Athletes Go Live, has stats that come with it and everything, and those are big things and everything. But like Tech was talking about earlier, at the end of the day, a college coach doesn't know if your 6 hits came against a kid throwing 52 to 55, or if your 6 hits came against a kid throwing 87 to 89. You don't know if you were playing those, if those 6 hits came in Colorado versus those 6 hits came in Florida. So there's so many different avenues where stats mislead so many different people and lead parents and kids down a path that is sometimes hard to come back from. So I think that if you could run a tournament that provided good quality games and everything, that provided a good tournament experience, for the ones that want to win it, but at the same time removed the statistical value of everything, that having to constantly know how hard Johnny was throwing or what his exit velo was or what he went the turn, how did he do in the tournament? At the end of the day, do the same thing like we all did when we were growing up. Every kid knows if he was pretty good and everything, and if you had a good tournament, you'd go home and go, yeah, I know I probably got like 7 or 8 hits.
Man, I love that. Figured I'd end on a bang right there and kind of throw you guys a curveball.
That's a great question. That
was fantastic for sure.
A dangerous question for us being in the industry, but it's a good.
Wanted to just hear about both sides of it, man. The good, the bad. Kind of educate the audience a little bit on the tournament space, how it could benefit you and your journey, how to utilize it, how to maximize it, and then obviously wanted to highlight Prospect Wire. Appreciate you boys being here. Thanks for letting me, run you through the series of questions. Thanks for elaborating on the mission, who you guys are, what you do. And we're looking forward to a successful 2025 for you guys. I'm extremely confident that we'll see a lot more of you guys moving forward. So I appreciate you boys being here.
Yeah, just a quick plug for those out there listening that are interested. It's our website. You can either go to prospectwire.com or straight to our event listing website, which is play.prospectwire.com. We're at Prospectwire on the Twitter, Prospectwire Baseball on Instagram. So give us a follow, and we'll keep trying to do our best to do the right thing in the industry. So.
Love that.
No
Love
plug
that.
for me. Just a straight up appreciation for both of you. Always enjoy talking with you, B Dub and Ian. Thank you for having me. This is first time I've ever done anything like this, so I appreciate it, man. It was fun.
Yeah, likewise, man. We'll have to run it back. Appreciate you guys and your time. I hope you have a great weekend. I appreciate everybody for being here on this episode of the Nine Hole Podcast. We will catch you guys again next time.